A huge story broke last night that could be of concern for Manchester City. A leaked UEFA report has accused Manchester City of accepting a £30 million payment from a mystery figure in the United Arab Emirates. City are currently facing 115 charges for alleged breaches of the Premier League's financial rules, and it's been suggested this latest accusation is part of the alleged breaches. The story was broken by the Times chief sports correspondent Matt Lawton, and Matt joins us now. Matt, a very good morning.
Morning, Matt.
Morning, Alan. Morning, Ray.
Matt, I'm sure this is very complex, so I'm going to let you please explain it.
Yeah, I'll try. Look, basically, as we know, Manchester City are facing 115 Premier League charges, and it's all around whether they've misreported their accounting. The time of these payments goes back to 2012, 2013.
Wow.
Now, obviously, they won their first title in 2012, but you have to imagine that they were trying to spend money that they technically weren't generating, allegedly at that time. So what we're looking at is a payment, or our two payments, £15 million each, that were presented as sponsorship money that actually perhaps weren't, that were from some mystery figure. Now, when UEFA looked at this, there's a man called Yabba Mohammed, they couldn't actually work out who he was. But when it actually came to it in UEFA's investigation, which, as we remember, initially resulted in a 2-year ban from the Champions League, and then they went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport and had that dropped, and in the end they just got a €10 million fine. But what's interesting about this story, and it's come from documents we've never seen before, it's from a UEFA report we've never seen before, and Martin Ziegler and I worked on the story. What's interesting about this is that UEFA actually couldn't do anything about this because they had a 5-year time limit on the stuff that they were looking at. That doesn't apply to the Premier League. So what we think is that what we have here is one of the 115 charges. There is a payment that City, or two payments, as I keep saying, that need to be explained. And as I say, now in 2023, when they're winning the treble, they are now, we believe, the richest football club in the world. The money's pouring in. They're making hundreds of millions a year. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But they can now spend all this money on players, this £1 billion squad that they've got, legitimately. But at that time, when they're trying to catch up, they've got all this incredible wealth with their new owners, and they want to spend it fast so they can close the gap and start competing with Real Madrid and Bayern Munich and Manchester United and Chelsea. That's when they face these accusations that they're spending more than their means, basically, because you're supposed to operate within your means as a football club, however rich your owners are.
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking at here is unexplained money that was being pumped into the club at that time.
But Matt, we're talking 10, 11 years ago here. Listen, I'm not saying it should go unpunished, but City, surely there's got to be a time scale on this, because City, with the money they have, they just keep throwing more top lawyers at it.
Is it part of the...
Shouldn't we just move on and make sure that it can't happen again?
Is this a separate thing as well, Matt, or is it part of the 115?
No, we think it will be part of the 115, and it's just, look, it's detail, it's timely. It's only 3 weeks ago that City won the treble, and I think when they won the treble, as impressed as we all are by this team, by Guardiola, we love watching them. We do have to remember that there are questions around how they got here, how they became so good, how they became so powerful. And look, we can have a separate debate, Alan, and I can sense in your voice that you're not entirely convinced by the financial fair play thing.
Well, I'm not, because look at Real Madrid, for instance,
absolutely,
Matt. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I sat with David Dean on Piers Morgan's show last night, and we were talking about when Abramovich turned up at Chelsea, and that was a game changer.
Yeah.
And the fact is, and as David said at the time, Abramovich had parked his tanks on their lawn and was firing £50 notes.
And Matt, who owns Everton? Do you want to go down that route?
Absolutely. But look, and I do have some, I do agree to some extent with a piece that Martin Samuel writes, which is that these rules, were basically set up to retain the status quo, to stop the nouveau riche, if you like, taking over the train set. But the fact is, there are rules. There were rules. Everyone has had to sign up to them, and City do have questions to answer. Now, the problem with this whole situation is it's going to take years. It's going to be tied up in litigation. It's going to be a couple of years before we even have a resolution here, which is not an ideal situation. And I have sympathy with Guardiola when he says, "I really just want this sorted so we can all move on." It's not going to happen that fast.
I don't think it's. To be honest, I don't think Pep lies in bed worrying about it, does he?
I don't know. I think he would be hurt if if there was some if there were actual sanctions attached to some of the stuff that City's done over the years. They have been phenomenally successful. They are now dominating 5 of the last 6 years. They won the Premier League. I don't think it's ideal.
talkSPORT Breakfast with Alan Brazil. Thursday and Friday morning, 6 till 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.